I ran through all that. You guys probably didn't even hear me at all there. Okay, starting over. Welcome into Austin Now, live from the Fox 7 Austin newsroom. If you're just joining us, typically we join you guys at 8:30, then that moved to 8 o'clock. Now we have moved to 6:30, coming right off the 6 with Mike Warren. We got a lot of stuff to cover today. Obviously, the ongoing situation in Minneapolis regarding those anti-ICE protests. We've seen massive operations there with thousands of federal agents. We have also seen a lot of people coming out and walking the streets at all hours of the day and at night protesting against these ICE agents. We will also talk about the escalating situation between the United States and Greenland, and the United States, Trump specifically saying they need Greenland for national security. Of course, NATO and the European Union pushing back on this a little bit and saying, hey, can we talk about this? What's going on here? Trump coming out and saying, hey, Russia or China is going to take control of this. We don't want that. We're also going to show you guys an interview we did with our 7 on Your Side reporter, Angela Shen. She will be talking about license plate fraud, something that's quite prevalent, something that law enforcement is worried about. So she'll break that all down for us. She came in a couple hours ago to talk to us, so we'll show you that. And then we also sat down this weekend with Kathy Tovo, the former Austin City Council member who is actually running for Texas House District 49. So we're trying to bring in all the candidates between now and the primary in March and give them a chance to explain to you, the voter, why they think you should vote for them. So let's get into this anti-ICE situation here. So some agitators went into a Minnesota Target store demanding the retailer shop basically stop helping these federal agents because they believe that the Target parking lots have served as staging grounds for immigration enforcement operations. So this happened at a local Target in Minneapolis. I will show you guys this video now. And really interesting here. If you listen in, you can hear them singing here. All right, so you can see there. I'm just going to play this over and over, but I'll turn the volume down. But you guys can see here these people in Minneapolis disrupting shoppers inside that store, basically occupying it, if you will. They believe that by staging this sit-in inside, that they could basically make a protest here against federal agents and federal immigration authorities. This is from the retailer here. They are saying that the Target parking lots, well, this is from the protesters. The Target parking lots have been a meeting place for ICE agents. One protester holding an abolish ICE sign, as you can see here, said ICE agents are using the toilets at Target, so they're facilitating this invasion. They also said Target is serving as a, quote, staging ground for ICE. They're not all participating in challenging this ethnic cleansing we're seeing in this country. Another protester said she was calling on Target to stand with the community to, quote, protect our tiny children from losing their parents. She said, we don't want your tiny baby clothes. We want your protection for our families. Fox News, of course, reaching out to the retailer. It doesn't look like they're giving it a comment. The protesters, obviously, as you can see here, singing songs, saying abolish ICE here, and just sort of sitting in the middle of this Target. Another woman saying, you must stop treating immigrants wrong. We'll be back. We'll be back, they chanted. Many of the people arrested were living in the United States illegally and have committed crimes, according to the administration officials. So obviously this is something that's ongoing in Minneapolis. And earlier there was another protest going on. We don't have that right now, but I would try and bring that to you if we could. And if anything changes, we'll of course bring that up for you guys when we get a chance. But this wasn't just the end of it here. There's a lot of these things going on in Minneapolis right now. So the DOJ actually has come out and said they are investigating an anti-ICE protest that actually happened during a church service. So I'm going to bring that video up for you guys because it's pretty shocking video here as well from Fox News, and somebody actually capturing the moment these protesters go into this city's church here. And the reason being is that, and I'll explain it, but I'll show you guys the videos and then we'll break down exactly why they did what they did. So just listen in here. These are people coming into this church over the weekend and protesting, anti-ICE protesters here in Minneapolis.
Why are you not at local protesting? Why are you not standing up with your Latino and Somali colleagues? Housing the devil. What do we do?
All right, so I'll turn the volume down on this, but you guys get the picture, obviously. This going on at a church in Minneapolis. If I can get the volume back up here. So, yeah, a lot of people upset, obviously, in Minnesota regarding these ICE agents coming in there and removing people. But I'll just let this play, and then we'll, of course, talk about what we're seeing there. So, according to them, this is the activists with the Racial Justice Network. They went in to disrupt a church service at the church called Cities Church in St. Paul to oppose a pastor at the church. The protesters went to the church because they say the pastor in question, a man by the name of David Easterwood, is also the acting field officer director for ICE in Minnesota. The protest was documented in part by former CNN anchor turned YouTuber Don Lemon. Video from Black Lives Matter Minnesota also show protesters chanting during services. This information coming from our affiliate Fox 9 in Minneapolis. An attorney here says, this cannot be a house of God while harboring someone directing ICE agents to wreak havoc on our community. This is an attorney by the name of Nikema Levy-Armstrong. She told Don Lemon during his live stream explaining why the group was at the church. She said, quote, I am a reverend on top of being a lawyer and an activist, so I come here in the power of the Almighty God. Fox 9 can confirm a man by the name of David Easterwood is the acting field officer director in Minnesota. Easterwood is routinely named in DHS court filings. However, Fox 9 wasn't able to confirm acting director is the same David Easterwood listed as a pastor on the city's church website. So can't necessarily, Fox 9 can't confirm if they can put those two together, but that's why these people were here. They believe this David Easterwood is the same David Easterwood that's the acting field director with ICE, so they're coming in during this church service and disrupting it here. Meanwhile, the DOJ says they are investigating. Sunday afternoon, hours after the protest, officials with the DOJ Civil Rights Division said they are looking into this disruption. In tweets, Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon responded to the video of the protest by writing, quote, we are on it, working with the USAO in Minneapolis. This is un-American and outrageous. Dillon later added, the Civil Rights is investigating the potential violations of the Federal FACE Act by these people desecrating a house of worship and interfering with Christian worshipers, considering and investigating other related crimes as well. FBI activated too, so they tagged the FBI in this as well. Now, the FACE Act prohibits the use of force to prevent people from receiving reproductive health services or exercising First Amendment rights at a place of worship. Just this past fall, the Justice Department filed a FACE Act lawsuit over a protest at a New Jersey synagogue during a ceremony to honor the life of a late rabbi. So obviously the situation in St. Paul, Minneapolis continues to go on. As I mentioned, we were seeing some images earlier, live images earlier of some more anti-ICE protests. And the last time we talked to you guys on Wednesday, the last 30 minutes of the show, that's what we were showing you. We were seeing, tear gas. We were seeing the flashbangs, trying to get people out of the way as they were performing these ICE operations. And we've seen so many people coming in and trying to stop this and voice their frustrations as well. So a continuing situation. We'll continue to keep our eyes on it. I did also want to explain that the Secretary of the Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, actually came out on Twitter earlier today. and I'm going to keep saying this. I know it's X. I'm just going to call it Twitter. That's just how I grew up on it. So I want to show you what she had to say, and there are some people debating her comments here. So this is from Secretary Kristi Noem, obviously heading the DHS and all of this, and really being the spokesperson for any and all things ICE related. Of course, when we saw Renee Nicole Good get shot a couple weeks ago now, she was the first person to come out for DHS and explain that this was an act of domestic terrorism. So I'll show you what she tweeted out, if you can see it here. This was this morning, and we'll just go through it. She says, "Peace and public safety in Minneapolis," all caps. "We have arrested more than 10,000 criminal illegal aliens who were killing Americans, hurting children, and raining terror in Minneapolis because the governor, Tim Walz, and the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey, refused to protect their own people and instead protect criminals. In the last 6 weeks, our brave DHS law enforcement have arrested 3,000 criminal illegal aliens, including vicious murderers, rapists, child pedophiles, and incredibly dangerous individuals. A huge victory for public safety." So if she says here, we have arrested over 10,000 illegal criminal aliens, is that, I'm wondering if she means all operations across the U.S. since this has began? Because then she says here, hurting children and raining terror in Minneapolis. But then here she says, DHS law enforcement have arrested 3,000 criminal illegal aliens. So I'm not sure what the exact number is. But she does go on to say, a huge victory for public safety. There is massive fraud in Minneapolis, at least $19 billion. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Our Homeland Security investigators are on the ground in Minneapolis conducting wide-scale investigations to get justice for the American people who have been robbed blind. Make America safe again. So, as I mentioned here, I'm not sure if she's saying 10,000 illegal immigrants within Minneapolis and Minnesota as a whole, or if she's saying 3,000 have come from Minnesota and they have done 10,000 arrests in total. I'm not sure, because the way that's worded, it makes it sound like 10,000 people in Minnesota. She then goes on to say there is massive fraud in Minneapolis, at least $19 billion. That is a number that's about double what prosecutors in this case have said they estimate it could be, which would probably be more like $9 billion. So I can't verify the $19 billion in fraud there, but that's what Kristi Noem is saying here. So obviously DHS is going to come out and say that everyone they're arresting is a criminal. But we have seen some instances where U.S. citizens were actually arrested mistakenly, and they have come out and since gone back on that. We saw this obviously happen with a college student who was leaving from Massachusetts to come to Texas for her college, Thanksgiving break, if you will, to see her parents. She was eventually deported, and DHS came out and said, hey, we made a mistake there. So these types of things do happen. So that's what Kristi Noem is saying. Of course, we'll continue to keep you guys updated on the situation in Minnesota. And when we come back, I do want to talk about the escalating situation, of course, between the United States and Greenland and a matter of national security and NATO allies coming out. And they look concerned, I'll be honest with you. They look very concerned. So we'll hear from Denmark's foreign minister. We'll also show you that crazy video that I mentioned earlier about this elephant that is just on a rampage in India for days on end here, killing dozens of people. So we'll show you that. And then we'll also show you that interview with Angela Shen talking about those fake license plates right here in Texas. But we will be back after the break. All right, welcome back into Austin now. As we mentioned, we had been coming to you guys at 8:30, then that moved to 8, now we're at 6:30. So I know that's probably a little bit confusing, but the plan is to join you guys at 6:30. We'll go 6:30 to 7:30, basically coming right off our 6 o'clock news with Mike Warren. So in the first block of that show, obviously we showed you a lot of what's going on in Minneapolis. There's been so many shocking images coming out of there. There's been violence, there's been protests, there's been pepper balls sprayed, there's been flashbangs, there has been ICE operations, there have been it's just nonstop every day. We did have some live images earlier that I wanted to show you guys, but by the time we had come on, it looked like those protests had settled over in Minneapolis. But if anything changes, we'll bring that back to you guys as soon as we can. I do want to talk about the escalating situation in Greenland, but before we get to that, I have to show you guys this really shocking video here from what I'm calling an elephant rampage in India. This is from TMZ here, and I mean, this is just some of the most wild video you will see all day. So I'm going to pull this up, and you guys can just witness it for yourself, and we'll just run this thing on a loop as we try to get more information on exactly what's going on here. You can see here, this is video that TMZ posted earlier today. They say 22 people dead and a 10-day rampage from what they're calling a killer elephant on the loose. So this is a small town in India. The elephant went rogue in a district in India's Jharkhand state. It began attacking villages on New Year's Day. A couple and their 2 children were trampled to death as they slept in a village in the following days, and the number of victims has steadily risen. Check this out. I mean, just pushing people around here. And I'll try to freeze it on one part where he gets this guy in the air. I mean, check this out here. Watch this. He's going to nail this guy. Look at this. And that guy's fully off the ground. We'll go back. Look at this. Watch this guy. Look at that. Right there. I mean, just taking no prisoners. It is. So, obviously, a really scary situation there. Specialist teams from other towns were rushed in to help, but they couldn't stop it either, with one expert fatally injured while trying to manage this element. Wildlife officials now believe the animal is a sub-adult male, they believe he's in this hyper-aggressive hormonal phase and essentially is lashing out while trying to find its way back to its mother's herd. Other officials believe the young bull is in its mating phase, which can also make it aggressive as well. Authorities are on high alert as search teams race to track down and subdue the out-of-control elephant before it kills again. As I mentioned, 22 people dead over a 10-day period here. A killer elephant on the loose, and they're trying to subdue this thing. We'll run through this video just one more time, and then we'll move on to something else. But it's just incredible video here that we have from this small village in India. All right, so that's enough of that video. But I did want to show you guys another pretty incredible video as well. Obviously, that one very scary there. But this one, I mean, just equally shocking image here. This is a drone footage we have of a 100-car pileup in Michigan. Obviously, the weather up there right now going through this Arctic blast that they're experiencing. So much snow on the ground, dangerous conditions. And check out this aerial footage here. This is a 100-car pileup in Michigan. As you can see, all of the 18-wheelers here. You've got normal, everyday people here, and they're just trying to just, stop all at once. And what you have here is this massive domino effect. So as I said, more than 100 cars, including dozens of these 18-wheelers. This was on I-196 in West Michigan. This was Monday morning today. The highways remained closed in both directions between the city of Hudsonville and Zeeland. That was according to the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office. It will likely remain closed for several hours, which we know that it was. Those crashes began around 10:20 a.m. And here's some quotes here. Deputies were dispatched after receiving multiple reports of numerous crashes and slide-offs in the area. The incident also includes several jackknife semis, as you can see here. All those injured in the crash, about 9 to 12, had been taken to the hospitals by 2 p.m. No fatalities have been reported. So out of all of this, obviously horrifying images here if you're seeing this aerial footage from a drone, but thankfully, according to this report, nobody killed, but there were some people taken to the hospital. So just a crazy situation we have there in Michigan with this weather and just the drone shots. I mean, just that opening shot there, you can see the destruction, the chaos here that was experienced by so many people in that Michigan area. So once again, same with the Minneapolis situation. We're continuing to keep an eye on other things like this that's going on as well. Want to shift over now, obviously, to an international situation of security here that we have with the United States and Greenland. And President Trump, as he typically does, really putting out all the information there, his back and forth with these Scandinavian countries. So President Trump has warned that the U.S. can no longer think purely of peace as he pushes for this Greenland control. The president then sent text to the Norwegian Prime Minister after being denied the Nobel Peace Prize. He demands complete control of Greenland. So President Donald Trump warned that he no longer feels obligated to think purely of peace. As he argues, the United States must have this. So in a text exchange with the Norwegian Prime Minister, he wrote, "Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus," he wrote that in all caps, "I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but now can think about what is good and proper for the United States. Denmark cannot protect that land from Russia or China, and why do they have a right of ownership anyway? There are no written documents. It's only that a boat landed there hundreds of years ago, but we had boats landing there also." So obviously this has caused quite a stir between NATO allies. This is obviously Greenland, the most massive island in the world, essentially a territory controlled by the Kingdom of Denmark. And so there has been a lot of discussion, of course, with Denmark and all this. And I do want to point this to their foreign prime minister, or Minister of Foreign Affairs here. This is Lars Rasmussen here. So we'll listen into what he had to say as the woman here is asking him about what the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer had to say about it, as well as President Trump's comments. So we'll listen in to the Denmark's Minister of Foreign Affairs.
That we are open for this kind of discussion. We are pragmatic, cold-blooded Scandinavian people with a warm heart. But it is not easy when we wake up every morning to new threats. Please convey that message to the President. And therefore, for a second, I thought, we have managed not to solve the problem, but to find a pathway forward. It was disrupted by the statement from the President, and that's a reality of life. And that's why it's so important that all our allies in the NATO alliance and the European Union stand up for these principles to show the American president, you have a desire, you have a vision, you have a request, but you will never be able to achieve that by putting pressure on us. That signal is of crucial importance in order to, I would say, to push the Americans back into the meeting room as we agreed last week. I used the word surprised, and I think I will stay on that. I mean, I have no intention to escalate things. I've had this discussion with the President in my former capacity as Prime Minister, and it's a matter of fact that we had casualties in Afghanistan totally similar to the U.S. Casualties. At that specific occasion, he said, "You made a good argument. I want to repeat that one." And of course, I realize that the Vice President said you could have done many things, proper in the past. Would that define the future? I think it gives you credit. I mean, you can always count on Denmark, as we always can count on UK, and that's why. Well, first of all, my response to the Prime Minister is that we really appreciate the very strong statement for him from his side, arguing that, there are principles in life. And even though UK has a very special relationship to UK, which I acknowledge, especially after Brexit, there are red lines which can't be crossed. This is a matter of basic principles, and we are living in 2026 where you can trade with people, but you can't trade people. And listening to a UK Prime Minister who stands up for that principle is very, very important. And then, of course, I realize you can't leave anything out until the President himself have decided to leave anything out. Huh?
You hear that? That's Lars Rasmussen there from Denmark talking about this situation with Greenland. Of course, Denmark, they're controlling this territory, the Kingdom of Denmark. So President Trump, as I mentioned, sends this text message to the Norwegian Prime Minister, and then this is what Trump said at the end here. He said, quote, "I have done more for NATO than any other person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. Thank you, President DJT." Now, Norway responds by saying Norway's position on Greenland is clear. Greenland is a part of the Kingdom of Denmark, and Norway fully supports the Kingdom of Denmark on this matter. He said, "We also support that NATO in a responsible way is taking steps to strengthen security and stability in the Arctic. As regards to the Nobel Peace Prize, I have clearly explained, including to President Trump, what is well known. The prize is awarded by an independent Nobel committee and not the Norwegian government." In a prior message to the U.S. President, the Prime Minister said on behalf of himself and Finnish President Alexander Stubb, they had conveyed opposition to Trump's proposed tariff increases on these countries. So because of this, President Trump has essentially threatened these countries over there in Europe to say, hey, if you're not going to let me go through with this, not let the United States go and acquire Greenland, we're going to slap a 10% tariff on you February 1st. If you do not acquiesce, by June, then we are going to bump that up to 25%. So certainly threats coming down, as you heard there from Lars, basically saying, hey, we're waking up every day and we're hearing new threats. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the situation in Greenland. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we will show you our interview with Angela Shen, who does so many of our great 7 On Your Side reports, this time talking about fake license plates. Certainly something for any of you that like to buy used cars or may go on Facebook Marketplace, what have you. This is certainly something you're going to want to watch. We'll take a break. Welcome back into Austin now, live from the Fox 7 Austin newsroom. As I mentioned, we're in a new time slot here, so going 6:30 to 7:30. We got about 25 minutes left with you guys. Before we get to this interview with our very own reporter, Angela Shen, I do want to show you guys some live images now in Minnesota. As I mentioned, these anti-ICE protests have been going on ever since the killing of Renee Nicole Good there in Minneapolis. And of course, we see more protesters out here. It looks like there's some fenced gates here, so I'm not quite sure exactly where this is. It looks as though protesters have gathered with some signs. It looks like right there is a Mexico flag from what it appears. I can't read that sign up in the front, but when we joined you guys last Wednesday, we showed you a protest that was going on there in Minneapolis that turned quite hectic and chaotic. There was obviously, tear gas being thrown. There were flashbangs being thrown. There were people yelling and screaming. One of the reporters there for our Fox station was actually in the middle of it all. They had multiple cameras from multiple angles trying to bring you guys the latest. The reason being was there was a second ICE-involved shooting there with a Venezuelan national. So every day, news stories coming out of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Every day we are hearing from both sides of the aisle, of course. DHS releasing a statement earlier from Kristi Noem saying 10,000 criminal illegal aliens had been arrested. But then she goes on to say 3,000, so I'm still trying to figure out if it's 10,000 in total for every operation around the United States, or is it just of the 10,000, 3,000 are in Minnesota? I'm not quite sure. Okay, we will go now to this story with our very own Angela Shen. She joined us a couple hours ago right here in the Austin Now little booth to talk about a story she's doing and a very odd situation here. If you're going to go buy a used car and you're feeling a little worried about it, yeah, listen to what Angela has to say here. On Angela Shen to explain one of her 7 On Your Side stories. Yes. Obviously, you've done a lot of digging on stories around the area. We wanted to bring you in and kind of get more of a hands-on approach to exactly what we're dealing with here. So let's start from the beginning. Fraudsters using fake license plates. How did this come about? When did you start to learn about this?
Yeah, so I first saw this. It was Texas DMV. They made this post about replica license plates. People, they buy these, they use them as decor, they put them in their garages, which is great. But if you're buying a replica one or a fake one, you can't have it on the road.
Right.
So what we found out is Burnett County Sheriff's Office, they're part of the Heart of Texas Auto Theft Task Force. And they said this is a huge problem. So in July of last year, state of Texas got rid of paper tags. Those temporary tags, fraudsters would use them because they're so easy. They're paper to replicate. They got rid of them and started requiring metal plates to be used. But now the task force is saying people are replicating those metal plates. So it's an ongoing issue. So even though the paper ones went away, the metal ones, people are still trying to replicate them. So
I want to show, you're going to explain to us here kind of what these look like.
Yeah, so the Burnett County Sheriff's Office, they pulled out a ton of fake license plates. So this
you're here in the Sheriff's Office.
Yes, that's where I am. Let's play that.
At first glance, these may look like regular license plates, but if you look closely, this one has a sticker on it. This one also has a sticker on it, but if you flip it over, it's the real license plate that was
That's not good.
At first
right?
glance,
When I first saw them, I was like, oh, because when I walked into the room, they look like regular license plates, but they're not. They all have that sticker on them. There's some of them on the back. I don't think it's in this shot, but they even have the blue registration stickers that look real, but they're not. Like the font will be slightly off, or the size is just a little bit off. But to the average person, even a lot of the patroll officers, they don't know to recognize that.
I was
So
going to say, if you're far away, and you
that
see
looks
this,
totally real.
I guess for what they're dealing with, I mean, is this something that they've seen a recent surge in? Is this a common problem?
Yeah, so they do like title inspections. So when people buy a new car, they have all their documents, take it to the tax office, get all that inspected. That's where the task force says they're seeing a lot of this. And usually the buyer doesn't even know that they bought a stolen vehicle. A lot of times these fraudsters will buy or try to sell a stolen car on social media, and they'll have the fake plates on them, and the buyer thinks, oh, they're just buying a car, but it has all this history attached to it that they have no idea about. And a lot of these sellers, they're hard to trace, and these are cash-only transactions. And so once this happens, the seller, or the buyer rather,
Nothing they can do about it?
Yeah, pretty much. A lot of times they lose their money, and then they find out that car was stolen, so they don't have the car either. So they're a lot of times out of luck. I mean, of course, the authorities will try to track backwards and see if they can get to that original seller, but it can be very difficult.
And see, you can see here, I mean,
Yeah.
if I see that,
Right.
I don't think anything right here.
Right,
I
but
don't
when you
think
really look at it, you kind of see the sticker on the
Right.
side. Yeah.
This one here, obviously a little bit more if I can replay this. You can tell here, this one, it's almost like it's been taped over, I guess. you
Oh
could
yeah.
say.
Yep.
And
For
so
sure.
what's the situation now, I guess? And then what are some warning signs that these sellers are not legit people?
Right. So this is happening. The task force is seeing it every week. They said, I think, an average of at least one vehicle a week they'll see is stolen. So warning signs, if you're buying a car off of social media, it's recommended that you not do that. But of course, some people, they're in a rush. They want to get it done. They're desperate for a vehicle. So if you are buying something online, if it's a cash-only type of deal, that's a red flag.
Maybe too good to be true type deal, yeah.
Yep. If it's if the seller wants to meet in a random parking lot, they don't want to meet at the police station in that like safe trade zone or
Right.
whatever it's called. That's also another red flag. You can also, ask detailed questions about what you're trying to buy. If they kind of, start getting avoidant after that, that's also a red flag. So there's definitely warning signs there. Ideally, you should be buying a car at a dealer, but for people who are in a rush, it might take a little bit of
Maybe they're on
extra
Facebook
homework.
Marketplace
Yep,
and
exactly.
they want to go meet somebody and they've got
Yep.
this good deal cash on. So
That's
the
my
deals will be
understanding.
good, most likely.
Yeah, or they're trying to get because some of them
They just want to get rid of it.
Yeah, because either they're stolen or the sheriff's office was saying some of them have payday loans on them, so the seller's just trying to make it disappear, basically.
And what can people do out there to protect themselves? Obviously, this is not something a lot of people are used to dealing with, but is there anything they can do to sort of shore up what they're buying?
Yeah, so there's a couple of websites that they recommended that you can do your research on. Carfax is one of them. Texas DMV, there's the National Insurance Crime Bureau. You can search the VIN numbers. I think it shows like title information and history, so that'll kind of give you a better idea. One of the dangers, obviously, with this is when it comes to license plate readers or toll roads, like they're not reading the correct vehicle. If police are trying to catch someone and it's not scanning the right vehicle, that makes it 10 times harder for everyone involved to try to catch these criminals.
Have they said anything about the replica? Because I do know people that like to keep them. Have they thought at all, I don't know if you asked them this, but like maybe we shouldn't do that, or maybe this is a concern to have the replicas, I don't know.
Well, they were basically saying if you want to use it for decor, by all means,
Right.
keep it in your garage, just keep it off the street. They also said if it is a replica, it should say the word replica on it or the word antique. There's little signs on there that you don't normally think about, but they did say it is illegal to buy a replica license plate off of social media if you're going to put it on the road.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, so just keep it
Do
in
not
your
do
garage.
that.
Yeah, if you want it for decor, cool, but do not put it on the road because it just confuses everybody.
Well, as always, you're always with our 7 on Your Side story. So, of course, if there's something you want Angela to look into, she's very good at it, of course. And I do want to say, one of the topics we've talked about a lot on here is what is going on with the houses and the cracking.
Yeah.
So I just want to mention that.
Yes.
If you haven't seen that, go check out Angela Shen's story on that as well. Of course, something like this, certainly everybody driving on the road,
Yeah.
something to look out for as well. So
Be alert as consumers.
there we go. We appreciate it, Angela.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
So as Angela I know it's kind of a matching shot there, kind of a cut shot. She was in here earlier with us, so not to be confused here. I didn't change or anything. That was a couple hours ago. So Angela obviously talking about these fraud license plates that she did the story on. Of course, that's 7 on Your Side. You can go on our website, look more into her stories. Of course, you can always reach out to us and tell us if you believe you have a story, a consumer story like this, that we should look into, of course. And Angela always does a great job of really digging into these things and trying to figure out exactly what's going on. I do want to take another quick look at what we were seeing out there in Minnesota. It looks like there are more protesters here. You can see them behind these gates, which appears to be a good idea here. They're not in the streets. Can't hear anything. I'm not sure if there's any chanting going on, of anything of that nature. We did see a flag earlier, looked like a Mexico flag. I don't know what these signs say, but if you joined us in the first part of the show, obviously people going inside a local Target there in Minneapolis and essentially staging this, we're just going to sit here and chant and sing songs talking about abolishing ICE. And then we also saw some pretty interesting video, I guess you could call it, from inside of City's church, where a group of protesters actually went inside that church. They said David Easterwood was a man that was a pastor there that they believed was a field officer with ICE, a directing officer, and so they went in essentially to voice their frustrations as well. But according to Fox 9, our affiliate over there in Minneapolis, they could not confirm if the two were tied together. So this situation looks pretty controlled here, obviously, which we hope it stays that way, and we're not going to get more images of those flashbangs and tear gas that we saw last week. We will take one final break, and then when we come back, I want to show you guys another interview we did with Kathy Tovo, who is running for Texas House District 49. That is a part of our Fox 7 Focus, which you can watch every Saturday right here on Fox 7 Austin. So we're going to take a quick break here on the Fox Local app. You can also join us on YouTube Live as well. And if you miss it, you can go on YouTube, you hit that live tab, you can watch it again. We'll take a quick break. Welcome back into Austin Now, live from the Fox 7 Austin newsroom. You can join us on the Fox Local app. You can also join us on YouTube. Hit the live tab. You can watch us live as well. I wanted to check in on the national championship game. I know it's kind of weird when college football is still going on this late in the year. It's January 19th, of course. Thankfully, it's a holiday, Martin Luther King Day, so hopefully a lot of people getting the day off today and able to watch this game. But it seems like 10, 12 years ago, you could watch this game 10 days ago, and then we'd still have those NFL playoffs. But it's kind of weird, the same week of the conference championships in the NFL, we are getting the national championship game, obviously, between Miami and Indiana. Indiana has not lost a game all year. I just checked the score. It's still 0-0. I think it's still in the first quarter there. So if anything changes, I'll let you guys know. Yeah, there's 4:18 left in the first quarter, still 0-0. Indiana, number one team in the country. That's been the case all year. And Miami has just gotten hot at the right time. I want to show you guys an interview we had with Kathy Tovo, the former Austin City Council member who is running for Texas House District 49. We talked to her last week, and then, of course, we showed you guys that interview on Saturday as part of our Fox 7 Focus. So for those of you who were not able to watch, I do want to show you that full interview here with Kathy Tovo. We are trying to interview all the candidates that we can leading up to this primary in March, so we'll listen in. Why now? Why run for District 49? You know what? There's something in the background there. Hold on. I think it's this. Get rid of all this stuff. There it is. Okay. Back to Kathy Tovo. It was the protest in Minnesota making that noise. Here we go.
Well, I'm running because I'm concerned about our state. I'm concerned about the way the Republicans have been passing, awful legislation session after session, and I'm watching it destroy our public schools, attack our universities, attack the personal rights of, anyone who's not a Republican, and I'm concerned. And I feel compelled to step up and do everything in my power to stop it.
What do you think is the number one priority for you going into this campaign?
Number one is to talk to voters and make sure they understand how critical it is that we have someone in District 49 who is going to work to stop the passage of more bad legislation. And so I certainly have some policy priorities, but I am really clear-eyed that the job of this next district representative is to get in there and do everything in their power to stop bad legislation from passing.
What do you think is the worst piece of legislation that has been passed that you've seen in the last few years?
That's a really hard measure because there has been so very much. I would say the attacks on reproductive rights, the attack on our trans community, the attacks on our public schools, including the passage of private school vouchers, and very clearly the maps, the redistricting and the maps are part of it. But there are some other really challenging policies that have passed as well. But as I look at our public schools, for example, those have a constitutional guarantee here in Texas to provide every student in this state with a quality education. And so when we have a situation as we do now, where those public schools are underfunded, where we see the banning of books in our school libraries, and various other kinds of concerns like the TEA taking over school districts, Texas is not living up to its constitutional responsibility, and our students deserve better.
You bring up the transgender issue as well. The Supreme Court talking about that this week. What is your stance on that as it relates to sports and athletics? We've heard so much from the Trump administration about men playing in women's sports or trans athletes playing in women's sports. What is your stance if someone comes up to you and say, what do you think?
I support our trans community. I think the bathroom bill and the other attacks on our trans families and community is awful, and I'm going to stand. I have stood with our trans community. I'm going to continue to do so and to fight back on those bills that are really attacking the personal rights of other Texans.
You've spent obviously a lot of years on Austin City Council. You have a lot of experience. What did you learn in your time there, and what would you change, if anything?
Well, I learned a great deal in those almost 12 years on the City Council. Served as mayor pro tem for 4 of those, and then as a council member, for almost 12 years. And I learned a lot about legislation and about being a legislator, and so I've had lots of experience passing legislation at the local level. I passed probably about 700 different initiatives, from small ones to larger ones, like opening the Sobering Center. And I also learned how to stand up to powerful interests, and so have a lot of experience standing up to powerful interests, to corporate interest, and to slowing down and or stopping policies that I did not think were in the best interests of Austinites. And so I think all of those skills will come in handy if elected to the State House. I'm going to work to pass legislation, but I'm also very aware of how Democrats are having an incredibly hard time, increasingly hard time passing legislation. What I know I can do with the skills I learned is to stand up and dig into those issues really thoroughly, ask question after question at the back mic, amend the heck out of those bad bills, and do everything I can to stop the passage of more bad legislation.
We hear the word affordability quite often in the last year or so, specifically when it comes to housing. Is there something you believe you can tackle to make housing more affordable for Austinites?
Well, we definitely statewide need to invest more in affordable housing. That was something I championed on the City Council, and we made some good strides in terms of increasing the amount of affordable housing in this community. And I think communities across the state would benefit from that. And so that will look like, everything from support for using state-owned lands for affordable housing to looking at changes to the tax credit program that might make it easier to build those tax credit affordable housing that is creating it's a public-private partnership that's creating affordable housing in communities like Austin and could be of real benefit statewide.
Obviously, we've seen what happened in Minneapolis with the fatal ICE shooting. We know here over the weekend there were protests against ICE agents. Where do you see this moving forward with the state?
As so many others are, horrified by what is happening in cities across the U.S., but especially in Minneapolis with the murder. I am concerned about the governor's deputizing of DPS officers as ICE agents, and I'm going to stand strongly with the community in pushing back on those actions and those policies that are giving rise to it.
It seems like Democrats and Republicans have gone farther to the left and to the right, but do you think there's an issue that both parties can agree upon that maybe they don't talk about out loud?
Well, a lot of the issues that we've talked about here today, I think, are ones that should have bipartisan support. We all care about the children in our community and care about schools, and I think we should have bipartisan support for increasing the funding for our public schools when it comes to our environment and really making sure that we have water resources and energy resources for the future. To me, that looks like a bipartisan issue. And so, I'm going to do my best to really have those conversations across the aisle.
What do you think voters misunderstand about you the most?
Well, one of the things I would tell them is that I have an incredible breadth of experience on various issues. We handled all kinds of issues on the city council, from affordable childcare to electricity policy to rate making to environmental issues. And so, sometimes people think, may think that I dig into the issues too deeply. And I would say, to me, that's a skill and a strength, and exactly what we need our elected officials to do, to really dig into those issues, make sure they understand them fully, make sure they understand the implications. And again, at the legislature, to me, that is the skill that's really going to help me stop bad legislation, bad policies from continuing to harm Texans.
So that was an interview we did with Kathy Tovo. Obviously, she was in the Austin City Council for quite some time, more than a decade. She was mayor pro tem as well. So she was telling us there she has a lot of experience when it comes to legislation. She is going for Texas House District 49. Speaking of 49, we talked with District 50 candidate, that is Samantha Lopez. She came into the studio earlier today telling us why she wants to run for this district that is open now because James Tallarico, who has held it, is obviously running for U.S. Senate. So she spoke with us. We'll have more on that conversation later. And we're also talking to other candidates throughout the week. So we're trying to bring in as many people as possible. I know Kimmy Ellison reached out to us as well. She's running for District 49. So we're going to try and talk to her as well. We'll try and talk to as many candidates as possible leading up to this primary. Of course, you can always check out what we're doing on Fox 7 Focus. You can also tune in to Battleground Texas with Rudy, Stephen Dial, and Greg Grugan out of Houston and Dallas there. Of course, they're always giving us the latest on all of this, and they're going to be going live pretty much every day throughout February and leading up to these primaries. And once again, I want to check in on the national championship. This is selfish of me to want to check in on this, but I do because, it's on commercial. Go figure there. So it was 0-0 last time I checked, so we're going to take one more quick break, and then when we come back, we will wrap up the show here on this Monday on a holiday. So hopefully you guys have the day off. Welcome back into Austin now. Just got a couple minutes left with you guys here. As I mentioned, new time slot here, 6:30 to 7:30 tonight. Obviously, you can watch us on the Fox local app, or you can go to YouTube, watch us on YouTube Live as well. I did want to show you guys there is a very special guest at the national championship game, which we are looking on at. If you're not paying attention to it, number 1 Indiana beating number 10 Miami 3-0. We've got about 2.5 minutes left in the first quarter. But, of course, during the national anthem, look who is in attendance there in Miami. Of course, President Donald J. Trump there. So we knew he was going to be coming to the game. There he is with looks like his granddaughter there. That's Kai Trump, and then his daughter, Ivanka, there on the right as well, and then his grandkids here as well. Not quite sure what Kai Trump did to her arm there, but the golfer there looks like she broke something. So President Trump there at the game. Not sure how long he's going to stay. He doesn't typically always stay till the end of those games. I think obviously for security reasons, and being at a game for 3-4 hours is probably not something he necessarily wants to do. But of course, I figured Indiana would win. They're undefeated on the year, a team I thought, are they really that good? Is this team really that? I mean, did they really turn it around that fast? Of course, we saw them in the college football playoff last year, and they got their butts handed to them by Notre Dame in that opening round. And I thought, okay, that's kind of a good story. Who's going to be the next Indiana the next year? Well, it was Indiana again, only they were better. They have not lost. They won the Big Ten championship against Ohio State, the team that everybody thought was probably going to repeat, because even though they were national champions, we thought this roster, this lineup was even better than the year before. Indiana says, we don't care, we're going to take them down in the Big Ten championship. Indiana comes in and they have just absolutely dominated everybody in their path, especially Oregon, a team that has the kind of money that they do. But if you didn't know this, Mark Cuban, the former majority owner of the Dallas Mavericks, the billionaire, you've seen him on Shark Tank, you've seen him on social media. He is an Indiana alum, and of course he's given them quite a bit of money. They have good boosters. They do actually have, according to them, the largest living alumni base in the country. So there's a lot of Hoosiers out